So if you take a look at this screen here, so this is actually about integrations, guys. Okay, first we will understand what is integration. So integration means communication between two applications. Communication between two applications. If you take a look at here, we are all using PhonePe. We all are using PhonePe. So in the PhonePe, we are actually configuring HDFC bank accounts. We are actually configuring Axis Bank accounts. So we are actually configuring all the bank accounts, right? So HDFC is different organization, different application, and PhonePe is actually a different application. But when we take a look at the balance, how much is the balance available on the bank account, we can actually check it from the PhonePe application as well, right? That means they are actually communicating each other. They are actually communicating each other. Let us say, whenever you create a record in ServiceNow platform, it has to create a record on Salesforce platform. Or whenever a record is created on the Salesforce platform and the record has to be created on ServiceNow platform, means we have to do some integration. See, when you create a record in ServiceNow platform, the record has to be created in Salesforce platform as well. Okay, the record has to be created on Salesforce platform as well. Okay, first thing. So whenever a record is created on the Salesforce, the record has to be created in the ServiceNow platform as well. That means these two applications are communicating each other, right? ServiceNow is actually communicating with Salesforce. Salesforce is actually communicating with the ServiceNow. So here you guys are able to understand what is integration, right?
Yes, Uday.
Okay. So here, if you take a look at here, if ServiceNow is creating a record, the record is actually creating in the Salesforce, means that is actually called unidirectional integration. Unidirectional. So that means whenever you create a record here in the ServiceNow, the record is getting created in the Salesforce. That means communication is actually going one way. Only from ServiceNow, it is actually, whenever you create a record in ServiceNow, the record is getting created in Salesforce. This is unidirectional. Okay. So if you take a look at here, whenever you create a record here in the Salesforce platform, it is creating a record in the ServiceNow system, means this is also a unidirectional. This is also unidirectional. So remember one thing, whenever you create a record in the ServiceNow platform, it is creating a record in Salesforce, means that is a unidirectional. This is actually one case. Whenever you are creating a record in the Salesforce and the record is getting created in the ServiceNow, means this is also a unidirectional. Suppose whenever you are creating a record in the ServiceNow platform, it is creating a record in the Salesforce. At the same time, whenever you are updating the same record, it is updating the whenever you are updating the record in the Salesforce, that is actually updating the record in the ServiceNow, means that is actually called bidirectional communication. Bidirectional communication. That means, let us say, guys, so I and my friend, only I am talking to my friend and my friend is not talking to me. That is actually one-way communication, right? Or my friend is talking to me, but I am not talking. That is also a one-way communication, right? Do you guys understand?
Yes.
Yes, Uday.
So if both are, if we are actually talking to each other, if I am actually talking and if he is also talking to me, if both are discussing, means that is actually called bidirectional integration. If both the applications are communicating each other, means that is actually called bidirectional integration. So that means here, if you go to the ServiceNow platform, if you go to the ServiceNow platform here, so here if you go to the incident record, not only incident record, any table record. Okay, so what will happen? So it will create a record in ServiceNow. As soon as the record is created in ServiceNow, it will create a record in the Salesforce. So it will create a record in the Salesforce. So this is actually a one-way communication. Okay, so let us say the record is updated in the Salesforce. So when the record is updated in the Salesforce, that record is actually updating here, means that is actually called bidirectional communication. So you are actually creating a record, the record is getting created in the Salesforce. When you are updating the record in the Salesforce, that record is actually updating this record here in the ServiceNow platform. This is actually called bidirectional integration. Hope you guys are able to understand what is bidirectional integration. What is unidirectional integration?
Yes, Uday.
Okay. So always remember, guys, always remember, we have unidirectional. Unidirectional means it can be whether ServiceNow is creating the record is getting created in Salesforce. One case. See, unidirectional cases are two things. Unidirectional cases are two things. So when you are creating a record in ServiceNow, it is creating a record in Salesforce. And when you are actually creating record on Salesforce, that is actually creating ServiceNow. See, this is one-way communication. So ServiceNow is creating record, the record is getting created in Salesforce. One thing, ServiceNow is creating record, that record is getting created in, Salesforce is creating record, that record is getting created in ServiceNow. This is also a communication. See, always remember here, guys, when ServiceNow is sending the data to external system. So here ServiceNow is sending the data to Salesforce or not?
Yes, Uday.
So here ServiceNow is actually sending data to Salesforce. So as the data is actually going from ServiceNow, that is actually called outbound integration. That is actually called outbound integration. This time Salesforce is sending data to ServiceNow, right? This is actually called inbound integration. So inbound means when ServiceNow is receiving the data, that is called inbound. When ServiceNow is sending the data, that is called outbound. Do you guys understand what is outbound integration? What is inbound integration?
Yes, Uday.
Okay. See, one-way communication can happen in two ways. So one-way communication can happen. That means unidirectional integration can happen two ways. So whether ServiceNow can send data to external system or external system can send data to ServiceNow platform. So here unidirectional integration can be outbound or inbound. Do you understand? Is there any confusion here?
No, Uday, understand.
Okay. So always remember, guys, what is outbound integration? So you guys tell me what is outbound integration?
Whenever ServiceNow is sending the data to external system, that is outbound. Whenever Salesforce is sending data to ServiceNow, that is inbound.
So here it can be any external system. It can be Salesforce. It can be Salesforce. It can be MuleSoft. It can be AWS. It can be Azure. It can be any external system. Okay. It can be any external system. It is not only Salesforce.
Yes.
Okay. So if the data is actually going, or if the data is only coming, that is actually called unidirectional. In the unidirectional, it can be outbound integration or it can be inbound integration. Okay. So we have to discuss about web services. So what are these web services? So these applications has to talk to each other, right? In which language they will talk to each other? So these applications will talk to each other, right? So these applications will talk to each other using these web services. We have REST web services. We have SOAP web services. So in the web services, we have actually two types. So we have REST web services. We have SOAP web services. So if you take a look at here, my screenshot here, these are the REST web services. These are the SOAP web services. So you can either use REST or SOAP. So REST is actually bit easy comparatively SOAP. Okay. So what is the difference between REST? So always remember, guys, to communicate between two systems, to communicate between two applications, we will either use REST web services or SOAP web services. We will either use REST web services or SOAP web services. So it is based on customer requirement. So most of the time, 95% of the time, we will go for REST web services. And very rare case, we will go for SOAP web services. Majority of the time, we will use SOAP web services for banking applications because SOAP is more secured. Let me just copy paste. So here, to communicate between two systems, we will either use REST web services or SOAP web services. REST stands for representational state transfer and SOAP stands for simple object access protocol. So always remember, guys, REST is simple to use, but SOAP, it is actually a bit difficult. So why is it difficult? We will not be able to understand this REST payload. So it is very difficult. So it has a lot of layers. So lot of layers in the sense, how exactly we can discuss. What is the example I can give you? Okay. So to go to your home, right? So you can directly go to home here. So when it comes to this one, right, you have to, so let us say you have CM office. Let us take CM office or PM office or PM home. Can you directly go to PM office? Can you directly go to PM office, guys?
No. No.
So you have to go through a lot of security layers. Isn't it? To go to CM office, you have to go through a lot of security layers or not?
Yeah. Yes.
But here, if you have to go to a person, right, you can directly go here in using REST web services, you can directly go here. But when it comes to the SOAP web services, you have to go through a lot of security layers. So that is why SOAP is more secured. Okay. Do you understand, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, well, most of the organizations, they use REST. So banking applications, so like HDFC Bank, SBI Bank, IDFC First Bank, these people use SOAP web services for integrations. So let us say we are actually getting the balance, right? So we are actually getting the balance on the PhonePe, right? So there is an integration between PhonePe and HDFC Bank. So they will actually give some REST services, REST web services, WSDL. So using that WSDL, they will give only permission to check the balance. They will give only permission to check the balance. So those things we can actually do it through the integrations. Okay. So for in that case, banking applications use SOAP web services. Rest of the organizations, they go to the most of the organizations, they go for REST web services. So well, REST is easy to understand. REST is easy to understand. Well, SOAP is a bit difficult to understand. And well, REST is something that which is actually which supports JSON, which supports text, which supports XML. Well, SOAP supports only XML. SOAP only supports XML format. So these are all the main difference. So there is one more difference. REST will use HTTP methods such as get, put, patch, post, delete. These are the HTTP methods that REST will use. Well, SOAP will use functions such as insert function, update function, delete multiple records function. So SOAP uses functions, whereas REST uses HTTP methods. So these are the differences. So most of the organizations will go for REST, and very few banking sectors will go for SOAP web services to integrate with the external systems. Well, here either you can choose REST or SOAP to communicate with the external system. So well, we'll go to the screen. We'll go to the Excel sheet here. So when you are using REST web services, so if you are actually doing unidirectional integration, you are using web services, REST web services, and you have to communicate with the external system. ServiceNow has to send data to external system. You will use REST message. So remember one thing, guys. First requirement is ServiceNow has to send data from ServiceNow has to send data from ServiceNow to Salesforce. Only the data has to go from ServiceNow to Salesforce. So that is unidirectional or bidirectional?
Unidirectional.
So that is unidirectional. So we are using REST web services. So when we are using web services, is it outbound or inbound?
Outbound.
Outbound. For outbound, we will use REST message. Okay. Second case. So when Salesforce is sending the request, ServiceNow has to receive the data. So that is actually unidirectional or bidirectional?
Bidirectional.
Directional.
See here, first leave the first requirement. First requirement is ServiceNow is only sending the request to Salesforce, and Salesforce is receiving that data. That means when ServiceNow is actually sending, that means that is actually outbound. Leave that first requirement. Second requirement is only Salesforce is sending the request to ServiceNow. ServiceNow is receiving that. So what is that? That is also a unidirectional integration. Okay. For unidirectional integration, we are using REST web services. So that is actually called inbound integration. When ServiceNow is receiving the data, that is actually called inbound integration or not?
Yes.
For inbound integrations, we will either use table API or import set API or scripted REST API. So table API is actually direct web services. Direct web services in the sense whenever Salesforce create a record, the record will be directly created on ServiceNow target table. So here direct web services are table APIs. So why do we use table APIs? Table APIs are used to send the data. So always remember, guys, here HDFC Bank, from the HDFC Bank, we have to get the details, right? Bank account balance details, right? So we have to show the bank account details, right? Then we will actually provide table API. HDFC will actually provide table API because they have to directly show the actual bank balance, right? See, you will understand slowly, guys. I think this will actually make you guys confused. Okay, so for now, what you guys have to understand is only Salesforce is sending the request. ServiceNow is actually receiving that request. So when ServiceNow is receiving that request, what do we call that?
Inbound.
Inbound.
For inbound, we have table API, import set API, and scripted REST API. These three things are available. Similarly, when you are using SOAP web services, so let us say you are actually sending data from ServiceNow to HDFC Bank application. So here you are using SOAP web services. So as we are sending data from ServiceNow to external system, that is actually outbound integration, unidirectional, right? Then we will go for SOAP integration, SOAP message. In the SOAP web services, we'll go for SOAP message. In the REST web services, we'll go for REST message. Similarly, for inbound, we have table API, import set API, and scripted SOAP services are available. Okay. Now you guys tell me, when I am using web services as SOAP, I am using SOAP web services, and our ServiceNow is actually receiving the data from Azure. Whether that is actually outbound or inbound, or tell me, guys.
Inbound.
Inbound.
ServiceNow is receiving the data, right? So in that case, we will go for table API or import set API or scripted SOAP services. We have to use any of these three things. So this one is not recommended. We will go for these two things. Same goes for REST as well. We'll either go for import set API or scripted REST API. Okay. Is that clear?
Yes,
sir.
Uday.
So these are all covered as part of integration, guys. So there are 15 videos available. You can stay in touch with admin team. They will actually provide you access. Okay. So for each one, what is unidirectional, what is bidirectional? So using REST web services, using SOAP web services, what is SOAP message? In how many ways we can use SOAP messages? So what is the importance of table API? So what is the importance of import set API? What is the importance of scripted REST API? So how do we use SOAP message? How do we use table API? How do we use import set API in the SOAP web services? How do we use the scripted REST API, scripted SOAP services in the SOAP web services? And also I have told that communication between two applications. I've explained both unidirectional and I have also explained both bidirectional. So whenever you create a record in the ServiceNow system, that will create a record in the Salesforce system. Same record when you update in the Salesforce, that record will be updated in the ServiceNow system. So this is actually called bidirectional integration. I explained both unidirectional and bidirectional integrations in those videos, guys. So you can stay in touch with the admin team. They will actually provide you the access. Okay. So hope you guys have got some idea what is unidirectional, what is bidirectional, what is inbound, what is outbound.
Yes, Uday.
Yes, Uday.
Sir.
Okay. So if you guys are clear with these things, right? What is unidirectional, what is bidirectional, what is outbound, what is inbound, what is REST, what is SOAP. If you guys have a bit knowledge on these things, right, you will be able to understand the integrations concept clearly. Okay. So any doubts regarding today's session, guys? Hello.
No, Uday.
No, Uday, it is clear.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.